Hi, I'm Mark Monlux, and this is your Friday night movie recommendation. So, this year, the year we're going to focus on this time is 1942. Now, 1942, the U.S. was in the grips of World War II, so everything was really World War II focused. Wasn't any television then, but we did have radio shows, and one of the new shows out there was Ceilings Unlimited, narrated by Orson Welles, and basically uh, promoted the aviation industry. Hey, what a good place to work, that type of thing. Other new shows that year were Mr. and Mrs. North and People Are Funny, which was a quiz show that ran for many years after that. At the movies, the Oscar winner that year was Miss Miniver, which, if you haven't seen it, is a very pro World War II film. Actually, was produced before the U.S. entered the war and hit the audience. The release happened like almost within a week or two after the the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. So it became an extremely popular movie, and there were a lot of other good movies promoted that were up for Best Picture that year. But honestly, like I said, everything was um, war centric in 1942. Um, Everything in the news was all the different battles that were happening, especially in the Pacific. The Battle of the Midway was very key amongst dozens and dozens of others. Um, so that's the setting. Um, a lot of great music came out that year, but number one on the Billboard's Top 100s was by the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and it was Moonlight Cocktail. I personally love 50s, 40s and 50s big band music. It's something I grew up with and have really enjoyed the resurgence of big band music that happened about 20 years ago during the aughts. Anyway, the movie I want to talk about is Cat People. Now, RKO wanted to do an interesting horror film. They they didn't want to do the type of horror movies that people had been seeing, vampires and werewolves, and they wanted to do something with a little bit of a twist. And someone thought, hey, how about something with cats? But what really got going was they they wanted to make something that had a really rich atmosphere. And this movie has this. So this is sort of like a psychological horror movie that, is it a creature feature? Is it not a creature feature? The premise is this a Serbian born woman who happens to be a fashion illustrator meets this wonderful guy, but she's got this hang up. She believes that she's descended from an ancient group of people that are evil cat people. And she worries that if they become intimate, that she'll turn into a panther and kill him. Now, from a modern point of view, and remember, psychology was still fairly new, and this is people were really wondering what does make psychosis, what doesn't make psychosis. Was it something in her childhood? Was there trauma? So her, they actually get married, but they don't consummate the wedding, so there's that tension. And encourages to see a psychiatrist. And that delves for more, okay, more into, is she really being influenced by disease of the mind, by a psychosis? And this is getting triggering more as he becomes more and more friendly with another one of the female leads, and she becomes more and more jealous. And so you got this ongoing building tension and suspense that keeps crawling in like a fog. The lighting is superb on this film. The music, the atmosphere, it's creepy, it's eerie, it builds. Now, this film is well known. Everyone credits this thing for what's called the Lewitton bus. The Lewitton bus is, it's a jump scare, but often this is just shortened to just the bus or a bus scare. And the reason it's called that is Val Lewitton was the producer, and what he has is there's this scene where in this impending threat builds a suspense, and it gets higher and it mounts higher and it mounts higher, and suddenly there's a screech, but instead of something bad happening, it turns out to be something completely harmless, which in this case is a bus squealing to a halt on the street. And thus it's called the Lewitton bus. This specific jump scare becomes a trope. And this is where it all started. And it's used frequently. I mean, Lewitton himself used it immediately in the next couple of films, thinking, hey, this is a good tool, it's a good way to make a jump scare. It wasn't done like this before. Beforehand, it was just things jumping out willy-nilly. They didn't really use a lot of extra build-up. And it is becomes standard practice. So watching this film, just to see how well it was done the first time, and they set the bar really high for how well it was done on the first time. And it's this film, even though I know that modern audiences are jaded, they want to see, or they're used to seeing a lot of really gruesome stuff. But a lot of times, in order to make that gruesome stuff work, you have to work at it. Otherwise, it's just stuff on the screen. A film that's got a wonderful pacing to it, nice music, good tonal, good, decent acting. A lot of people think it holds up. I think this film holds up. Cat People is one of my favorite films. It has a sequel, and 40 years later, a remake was done, and I love the remake. The remake came out in 1982. Who knows? Maybe you will even see a recommendation of that from me in a little bit. So that's my recommendation for this week. Cat People. Now, if you like this movie recommendation and my others, please follow and like me on TikTok. I'm trying to get my numbers up. I'm told I need to have a fair amount before I can start even qualifying for getting dividends on that. And I would really like that. So please share this with other people and pass it around. I also do the occasional unboxing videos and other stuff. And if you have a recommendation for what you would like to see, if you want to see something other than Friday night movies, which typically I stick to sci-fi or horror on Friday nights. If you want to see other movie recommendations for other days in the week, please let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and I'll see you next week.